So this is going to be a bit of a long video. I hope it's worth it. Um, this is to bring awareness to the Judge Carter update. I have bullet pointed the things from the Judge Carter hearing with the LA Alliance versus the city and county of Los Angeles. I don't know why the state is not involved in this. I think they should have dragged in the state, but I have made notes. I'm going to link down the sources in the description below. So if you want to read the entirety of the court case, you can. Essentially, it was reported on by a freelance news reporter. Matter of fact, if you give me a moment, I will pull up her Twitter here on the screen because I am not very good at pronouncing names. This happened on Thursday, by the way. Covered by this lady here, Megan Kenneth. I hope I'm saying her last name correctly. She's a freelance reporter focused on U.S. legal news. And she's worked for a couple different newspapers. So as you can see, that's her Twitter there. That's how I become in the know or in the loop of what was said in the court hearing and things of that sort. And she does like a live Twitter, a play-by-play, basically, in short. So with that said, there's really no need to watch this video. It's more of a listening video, so you can go ahead and minimize it if you want to. So the topic it's gonna cover is the hearing. What California is doing that I disagree with. The few things that were said in the hearing that I obviously disagree with. And a lengthy clip. Well, yeah, lengthy. Okay, so Venice, which is a city here in California, they had their neighborhood council meeting regarding homelessness because Venice is also having a similar problem as LA. And a reverend who runs the Union Rescue Mission was at this meeting, and he gave a very good insight for it. So I'm going to end up playing a bit of that meeting. They had a Zoom meeting. The video is publicly available to download, but I will link to the Zoom meeting, and then I will eventually re-upload that whole meeting if Zoom ends up deleting it, because I have no idea how long Zoom archives videos. So I have the whole meeting downloaded, which is like a 2+ hour meeting. But the part I wanted from it was the Reverend speaking, because he is one of the homeless service providers out here in LA County, and he gives good details about the situation, what's going on Skid Row, whereas I tend to cover more of what's going on within the county abroad. So let's get started. Excuse me. You'll have to pardon me if I accidentally cough. I get a little worked up because this information, the frustration of it just gets me worked up. So we'll start off with what was said at the hearing. And I'll start off with the first quote from the hearing. Carter says, "You're here today. You're here." Oh, I'm sorry. The exact wording, as it was reported on by Megan on Twitter. "You're here because the city and the county cannot reach those kinds of agreements," Carter said. When I walk down the streets, it is beyond any civilized society, and I go to Afghanistan and Syria, etc., and the refugee camps are better than Skid Row. Refugee camps. I want to emphasize that. Refugee camps are better than Skid Row. Okay? That's how bad it is. And the reason why it's important to emphasize that is because it really screams volumes to me as a person who is experiencing homelessness and can testify to the fact that these that the programs that the city and the county offer don't work. In other words, there's no a path from shelter to long-term housing. No, you're on your own on that. Literally, there's no like uh uh I mean, there's Section 8, but that's a 10-year waiting list. But outside of that, there's really nothing. It's either do it yourself or forget it. Right? And yeah, okay, Skid Row is ridiculous right now. As a matter of fact, when I was a kid, as I was growing up, I personally come from a middle class family, or what's considered then a class family. Both my parents worked, and the thing my parents always told me, or not both of them, more importantly, my mother, the thing she always told me was that if I ever became homeless, don't go to Skid Row because all that's down there is drugs and more drugs. Gangs are down there charging, you know, homeless people rent to sleep on the sidewalk, and if you don't pay it, tent gets burnt down, tossed up, or you get hurt. Okay, and other things aside from that that would imply that the area is not safe. Okay, so it's rough down there. Just in general, it's rough. And then another quoted tweet here is Carter again displays a quote and paraphrase from the state auditor, Elaine Howie? Howie? I'm sorry again if I'm mispronounced. I'm not very good with names. Funding for the homeless initiative that lists HHH funding at 1.2 billion. State funding in the last 3 years at 13 billion, etc. Measure H at 3.5 billion. Another quoted tweet here right after that is that the state does not track the funding it provides to combat homelessness, which might be the biggest problem of them all, Carter says. Carter is the judge, by the way, proceeding in this case. I, for one, when I have to go out and panhandle, I tell the public, hey, your tax dollars, that HHH and Measure H ain't working. Because if it was working, you know what? I wouldn't be out here panhandling. I wouldn't be out here holding up a sign saying homeless, God bless. Because obviously if I have the sign that says hungry or need change, I get a ticket. Here in the United States, that's a thing. And then in some other states, it doesn't even matter the wording. The fact that you say homeless and you get it cited out for panhandling and possibly arrested. But more specifically in California, to break it down real quick, the law says that panhandling is the form of asking. Either you're stating that you're hungry, or you're saying work for food, or you're asking people for change, either by a sign. Aggressive panhandling is the form of what's considered when you go up to people and say, hey, excuse me, got any change? Right? But saying homeless, God bless, that's just me making a public statement. I'm allowed to do that. I'm allowed to tell the public, hey, look at me, I'm homeless. God bless. Nothing wrong with that. That's my legal right. But, again, the only reason why, I don't get cited or taken to jail, obviously, is because on face value of the sign, you can't say, oh, well, you're panhandling, because there's nothing there to indicate I'm panhandling. And even though I know I'm panhandling, but based on evidence, there's no proof. But go figure, online internet panhandling is perfectly legal. And I say that in a tongue-in-cheek way. You think Twitch streamers, you think, yeah, things of that sort, basically. And I can say Twitch streamers because I do stream on Twitch, even though it's not for money most of the time. Though I've gone through rough spells, I will admit. But anyway, to get back to the point. Okay, I've told people as they're driving by or as they're walking by me, and when they ask, hey, why are you out here panhandling? Well, number one, there is not always work at the day at a. We call it Labor Ready, or it's formerly known as Labor Ready, but now it's called People Ready. It's a temporal job agency that hooks you up with work. Or, well, not 100% guaranteed to hook you up with work, but a possible chance, a good likely chance, depending, what type of work you're looking for, that you'll get a job that day. You'll get work. Okay. So you go work, week later, you get paid. Okay. And then when there's days there's no work and I'm hungry, well, this is the second best thing, which is panhandling. And I've explained to people locally to my area that the tax dollars are not working, because if they were working, I wouldn't be out here holding up the sign. You wouldn't be encountering me, and you wouldn't be listening to my story, and you wouldn't be giving me money, and I wouldn't have to be out here asking you for it just to eat. Okay, because my bills consist of storage, excuse me, storage, mailbox, and cell phone. Okay. TLDR, I'm homeless because of house fire and wrongful eviction. I couldn't get, I couldn't go after the homeowner because after the eviction, the homeowner passed away. So call it justice, questionably. But the homeowner passed away due to health concerns, and that was it. So with that said, what am I going to do? Go after the state? Even then, even if I could, right? Finding a pro bono attorney is like trying to find a needle in the haystack that will even take the case alone, right? But yeah, so I have a storage unit where I go to keep most of my stuff to change, and I keep body wash wipes there and things like that. And mailbox, because obviously I got mail. I gotta have an address for paperwork to be sent to for me to be able to do things in cell phone, obviously for obvious reasons. Aside from entertainment value, it's I need it for work in order to be able to get calls back, things like that. Apartment searching, so on and so forth. But now, that was all pre-COVID, by the way. Now I'm currently collecting unemployment because thanks to COVID, it really hurt the temp job agencies, because I couldn't tell you the exact details, but basically, yeah, a lot of places were not hiring because of the whole social distancing and, what's considered, essential workers and things like that, right? Temp agencies is not was or is ever part of the essential workforce. So that happened. And now literally all my money goes to keeping a roof over my head, which is now basically depleted my savings thanks to COVID. Um, Goes to my bills currently, which is again storage, cell phone, and mailbox. And basically paying about 545 a week. Yeah. Yeah, that comes out to a little over $2,100 a month. But I can't save any of it because none of these homeless outreach providers, none of the tax dollars are doing anything for anyone. Especially, more specifically, especially the ones that work. And that is my huge gripe, technically, is, what is the state and county and the city doing for the homeless people that work? I mean, slave wage is slave wage. And that's the hot new topic, right? Or not hot newest topic, but it's been pretty a hot topic lately, thanks to pandemic and unemployment. And restaurants and fast food places are complaining that they're having a hard time finding employees because unemployment is paying more than what they're willing to pay, which is true. I only getting less than 20 hours a week, at like 14, well, yeah, 14.50 an hour. It ain't worth it. It literally ain't worth it. Even at $15 an hour, ain't worth it if you're getting less than 20 hours a week. Hell, you'd be lucky if you got 10 to 15. Okay? Like literally. I've seen it worse actually. I've seen people get as little as 12 hours a week. And that's pretty bad. That means that's 3 days out of the week at 4 hours each day. That's pretty bad. That's what's happening before the pandemic, and it's still going on now, as a matter of fact. Matter of fact, I talked to some of the people that work here at the motel that I'm at. And again, yeah, one of the employees literally gets 3 days, 4 hours each day. And that's it. Even though they're full for Memorial Day weekend. But what angers me, or it does both. It angers me and it frustrates me a whole lot, is that, yeah, none of those tax dollars is helping, as far as I can tell, ain't helping me, and it ain't helping a bunch of other homeless people that I know that also work. Or the ones that live out of the car, or, any number of other reasons. It ain't helping them. It don't help nobody. And yeah, the state doesn't keep track of it, because I've personally tried calling our governor's office and say, hey, who do I talk to for accountability regarding these issues, regarding the spending and how it's not helping. And they're like, the governor's office has the nerve to kick it back down to the county. You call the county's like, well, you got to call the city. Like, what? No accountability whatsoever. And now we're going to get on to the next part, or the last point of the meeting, or not the meeting, I'm sorry. The last point of the court case, at least that I think is worth mentioning. But again, I will leave a link down in the description where you can read Megan's full coverage of the hearing. Miller, who is the county, I'm presuming is the county legal's defense team, says he didn't go dark. Then he goes into his issues with the legal claims in the lawsuit. We don't need a lawsuit to tell us to deliver services. We're going to do it whether there's a lawsuit or not. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. You know, if that was true, then I wouldn't be here making this video right now, and I wouldn't be uploading these type of videos to YouTube to bring public awareness. If that was true. Okay. What they're not understanding is that the lawsuit is necessary to tell the county and the city, and I hope they drag in the state, which I'll get to here in a little bit, that it is necessary because you know what? If they were doing their job like they're supposed to, or you would think, right? Then they would obviously be doing it, and I wouldn't be sitting here making this video to inform the public of what's really going on. And I wouldn't be out on social media, you know, basically ranting about what's not working. You know, I mean, I'm lucky though. I'm one of the lucky few, and I'll say this much: I'm lucky and blessed because I have made friends through the internet, which some of them I've only met once, and plenty of them I've never met in person. Okay, that have been there to help when they can. And what I mean by help when they can is that I've had to borrow money and then pay it back, obviously. You know, it's not right. You know, and then there's been times where they've given out of the kindness of their heart where I don't have to pay it back. So I've been blessed in both senses, you know, in that regard. But that's probably because also too you have, you know, they're aware of my health conditions, and I'm very public on social media about what I'm going through in terms of dealing with the homelessness and trying to dig myself out of this hole and the obstacles that I encounter along the way. So, yeah, you know, if the county was doing their job, I would not have to borrow money. I would not be currently in debt from borrowing so much money. I would not be in a motel room that I'm currently paying for. And finally, I would not be on social media not explaining, but sharing the horrors of going through the coordinated entry system that is a complete failure. So, yeah, the lawsuit is necessary. Yes, they need to be told what to do and how to do it and when to do it. Yes, it is absolutely necessary. And then a few other comments, which I'm going to cover here right now. Uh, this is a little bit my fault for not being prepared for this part. You have to forgive me. I'm doing this video off the cuff. Like, in other words, this is not planned. I don't have it. I don't have a script. I don't have anything for it. I'm literally doing it. You know, basically the same way I do live streaming. You know, it's just raw and not scripted because I believe that's the best way to give this type of information because it's really the only way to do it. But I'm looking for a particular tweet before I cover the next bullet point that I wanted to highlight in the video. But one of the county supervisors was at this hearing, and the judge makes reference to her applauding her, which is fine, but I have to disagree with it, and I have my I I don't know if you would call it proof, but good reason to disagree. In other words, I guess you could say. Because, when a person says in a meeting and how they respond publicly on a public forum is obviously, two different things, right? Okay, so here we go. All right, now I'm ready to prepare my information. So I'm gonna read the quoted tweet and then I'm gonna explain why I disagree with the praise. Carter is citing Hideo Solis's comments at a recent board meeting. Hideo Solis is a county supervisor. What I was impressed with was your recognition and the board's recognition of the inequalities historically. Says he wants them to know he's reading. Carter acknowledges the debate about long-term housing versus shelters. I'll tell you, everything's on the table. What I'm looking for is balance. You're here because the city and county cannot reach these, no, I'm sorry, those kinds of agreements, Carter said. When I walk down the street, it is beyond any civilized society, and I go to Afghanistan and Syria, and refugees camps are better than Skid Row. Okay, so that's the whole thread of that comment. Solis had okay. What she says at a board meeting and the way she responds to the public is obviously two different things. Now, what I'm going to pull up on screen is a Twitter thread where I tagged all the board supervisors, as you can see here, my Twitter thread, because I took a screenshot of LAHSA, which is the Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority, which is a joint effort. It's supposed to be a joint oversight organization between the city and the county. It was created between the two to help combat the homeless situation to begin with. And they mentioned in the tweet that permanent housing is more cost-effective method of ending chronic homeless than shelter. It costs $20,000 per person to house someone, while a chronically homeless person can use up to $40,448 in services every year. Okay. Presuming that you include motel vouchers and things of that sort. Okay. So I said LAHSA is wrong about the $40K a year. Medi-Cal, meaning, you have, Medi-Cal, which is like our equivalent of free insurance. ARP plus general relief for working is $70 a night, which comes out to 2.1K per month, which comes out to 25.2K per year. And I tagged all the supervisors and including the main Twitter for the board of supervisors. And I said, why is LAHSA allowed to spread misinformation? And I said, so based on LAHSA's numbers, if you house the chronically homeless people in the same room, so based on LAHSA's number, if you house chronically homeless people in the same room, meaning at least two people, okay, that saves them 50.4K. If you put in three chronically homeless people in the same motel room, that comes out to a total of 94.8K per year. And I said, question mark, question mark, question mark. And then I edited it in receipts of what I'm paying for and etc. And I said, If Lhasa is claiming 40K per person, I already saved them, $16,668.16. Since that is two people in one room, that's an extra 40K, so a total savings of $56,668.16. Again, assumption that both people are on general relief or both are working, or general relief and Social Security, disability, or insurance, or any combo thereof. I put SSI, but I'm pretty sure I meant SSI/SSD. Or any combination there, because you gotta keep in mind we do have disabled veterans, disabled homeless people, things of that sort. Right? I never got a response from any of these people. Never. So I disagree with Judge Carter's praise, because from my perspective, to be honest, it looks like the County Board of Supervisors is doing nothing. Jack nothing. Literally jack nothing. Okay? And that's upsetting. So the next point I want to get on to is the obviously I've mentioned the state doesn't track the funding. Sure. So while we're in the midst of a very serious situation of homelessness, let's bring this back up. I mentioned on Twitter, California can't solve our homeless problem, but we can offer a chance to win $1.5 million for getting the vax shot. Every nonprofit trying to solve the homeless problem face palms. Sees the hotels, homeless lives matter. And I mentioned at $25K a year per room at Motel 6 using AARP, it comes out to 116.5 million equals 4,660 rooms. Okay, and I took a screenshot of the news article that covered it, as you can see here on the screen. If you're watching the screen, as you can see here, the title is California to pay 116.5 million in gifts, cash to those who get COVID vaccinations. In the latest and most extraordinary effort yet to boost California's flagging COVID-19 vaccination rates, state officials on Thursday, this is last Thursday, this article was dated for May 27th. So it was that Thursday, that Thursday, May 27th, that Thursday. Announced what appears to be the largest inauguration incentive in the nation, the chance for 10 residents to win 1.5 million apiece. Okay. Excuse me. And as I mentioned, again, on Twitter, oh no. I also mentioned on Twitter, if I bring Chrome back up, I also mentioned on Twitter this should make every homeless service provider upset, annoyed at California's government right now. 4,660 rooms, at least 2 people per room equals 9,320 people off the streets. But if you force 3 people per room, because, I picked 2 because, COVID regulations. But with stuff lifting, it's like, well, yeah, I guess you could technically force 3 people per room. So let's say 3 people per room, that's 13,980 off the streets. I argue that 1 year is enough time to save/get a apartment, because obviously you're not paying for the motel room. So therefore you figure, if you're setting aside, let's say $540 a week, yeah, in like 2 to 3 months, oh, you're good and set to go, right? That's anywhere between $4 to $6 grand, because you need to have first, last deposit, and some places before they rent to you, they require that you at least have 3 months in advance worth of rent saved up in your bank account. Yeah, they want to see your bank account information. They want to see what your savings looks like. Some of them want to check your credit score. it's a big old headache. And you know what? If California was so concerned about the homeless problem, they wouldn't be, willy nilly just tossing away, as far as I'm concerned, tossing away 116.5 million. Okay, but mind you, I say willy nilly out of frustration. I understand from a sensible point of view that, there is people hurting from the pandemic. Okay, out of work, behind bills. Yeah, some of them, lucky 10 people are going to get all caught up on their bills and then some. So I understand from a sensible standpoint that there's people that can actually use that money. So I think it's, okay, let me put it like this. I think 1.5 mil is a little bit of an overkill. I think it should have been like, a chance to win $500 or something. Not only 10 people, they could have said, however you divide up $500 between X, Y, Z people. Basically, I'm not going to try to sit here and do the math off the top of my head right now. But that's besides the point. The point I'm trying to make is that, while we're hurting to try to get people off the streets and to try to solve this crisis, the homeless crisis, essentially, and it getting bigger by the day because, people get behind on rent, people get evicted. As the crisis itself continues to grow, especially in California, I know New York has it pretty bad and a few other places. That to me, from the state's end, this is wasteful spending. Okay. 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 When the county has the nerve to tell me over the phone that, hey, we don't have the resources. Yeah, I don't buy it for a second, right? Literally don't. And that upsets me. And there's a few other points I do believe I've made on Twitter that are probably noteworthy. And I'm going to find them real quick. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is a good one. So, like, I mentioned on Twitter that also Judge Carter didn't have to look very far for proof of misuse of funds because I quoted a tweet reaching out to, again, the county supervisors and my representative to inquire into an investigation that I never got a response on regarding misuse of funds. Right? Oh, okay. So here's the part real quick. As a side note, related to the homeless situation here in California specifically, is that I mentioned on Twitter, I said, I've been saying from the get-go on Twitter, Lawson doesn't work, and griped hard about, I think I meant they, not, or I meant about they claim, yeah, okay, never mind. About they claim they spend 40K a year on the chronically homeless, and yet I've never seen a dime in what they claim to spend. Farrell, which is a city representative, admits LAHSA doesn't work, and now people want to believe it. And I quoted the news reporter who has that mentioned to her right here, because she says, I asked Mitch Farrell how people could be placed in permanent homes if you don't know where they are. That's a great point, he says. That's LAHSA's job, and they are not doing their job. Right? I mentioned that. Then I continue to mention that this is what I find very frustrating. I sent an email telling Judge Carter the same fact that LAHSA doesn't work. I've shared my story regarding LAHSA publicly, And now because one guy admits to it, now people want to believe it over me, who's been basically ranting about it. People really need to start listening to the homeless. We know what doesn't work, and some of us know what will work for us based on our own unique needs. And then I ended up following up that tweet saying to validate that I have been speaking publicly about Lhasa. Here's one thread. I give a link to it, and I share the screenshots of the email I sent to the judge on February 1st, 2021. That was before they had their first hearing on Skid Row. And Judge Carter himself has never once acknowledged my email sent to him. He's acknowledged what everyone else says. He's acknowledged what the news has posted, but he has not acknowledged my email, which, I outlined to him basically in so many words that, Lhasa doesn't work. Here's what I think should be done and why. And also, Judge Carter hasn't looked, and I also mentioned on Twitter, Judge Carter doesn't have to look very far for proof of misuse of funds, because I link back to the thread where I make serious allegations requesting for an investigation from FEMA. Do you think freaking FEMA cares? Probably not. Right? So there's that. And you know what? I'm just frustrated with everything. So we'll leave it at that. But let's move on to the next thing that I want to talk about. This part's going to take a while. So, oh boy. All right. So the next thing I want to show. Oh no, did I accidentally take it down? I did. Okay, so I'm not going to be showing it. I'll leave a link actually down in the description below. There was, meaning past tense, there was a neighborhood meeting. It's they call themselves the Venice Neighborhood Council in the city of Venice. And obviously, they're not city council, it's neighborhood council. So I'm under the impression that it's a community formed council that tries to create change in their community or in their city. In other words, they have these meetings, keep track of agendas, and then they go to the actual city council and it's like, hey, the public's interested in having this done. So on and so forth. Those that type of deal, right? And Reverend Andy Bales, which I've had, on and off conversations with on Twitter. And he stresses a lot of what's going on. As for that meeting, I will be re-uploading that meeting to Twitter. Or not re-uploading it to Twitter. What am I saying? I wish I could re-upload it to Twitter. I'm going to be re-uploading a whole meeting. It was held over Zoom. Zoom gives a public option for you to download that meeting. Because I don't know how long Zoom archives those meetings or how long they archive the video. So I want to have a permanent place for it. But I will leave a link down in the description below to it if you want to. I highly suggest to give it a listen. At least when Andy starts speaking. I give it, he goes into a lot of detail, more than I could ever go into detail, and tell some really interesting, eye-opening situations that has happened. And, it's just, wow, basically. It left me breathless. And then I'm not gonna quote any of it because I don't want to misquote him. But I'll definitely be sure to. I probably won't upload the whole meeting. I'll probably just upload the segment where he speaks, basically, and cut it down to that. Because yeah, he tells a lot, draws a solid picture, and basically mentions, in short, uh, because he's trying to end the status quo, or as some call it, the systematic, racism quo, or the deadly status quo, things like that, because systematically our homeless, uh, coordinated entry system, as it's called, is is very one sided. In other words, people of color and brown people, um, they don't get the same treatment. And because I'm Hispanic, right? You would think, a city that's majoritarily Hispanic, right, would, you would think I would have an easy time, right? No, that's unfortunately not the case. Um, he talks a lot about it, and he talks about his personal experiences of trying to help on Skid Row, and the time he's put in, and the awards he's gotten, and a lot of things like that. But he is a homeless service provider to the best of his abilities. Obviously based on with funding he can obtain, and he's packed to the brim because he's essentially at ground. In my opinion, he's essentially at ground zero for our homeless situation, because a lot of cities and their local providers to help assist with homelessness in their cities will tell you to go to Skid Row, and especially our general information line. Like, our general information line is 201. You call it up, they'll be like, well, go to Skid Row, right? Because quote unquote, that's where the help is. But yet, we have tons of people still sleeping on the streets. And at the same time, it's a little dangerous to be in Skid Row, unfortunately. So I stay away. I stay away as far away as I can from it, and and do the best I can do. That's it, really. You know, I mean, it's really a seriously messed up situation. And what I hope to do with this series of videos, and I guess podcast style videos, is to bring more awareness. Because what I currently do on Twitch is that all my sub money or subscriptions that I get, people pay, to be subscribed to me. And all the bits that I get, which is a form of currency on Twitch, all that, all that stuff I get doesn't go in my pocket. No, I deliberately, once I hit the payout threshold on Twitch, I personally give it to a charitable foundation that I believe is having the most impact and effect presently, that is helping the homeless. Meaning that they do majority of what they say they do. Because there's a lot of homeless providers and organizations, and a lot of them nitpick. Well, I shouldn't say nitpick. There is a bit of a priority list. Meaning, what I mean by priority list is that they service families first, then disabled. Sometimes it's opposite. For some organizations, it's the disabled first, and then families, and then individuals. Where I think it should be first come, first serve. Period. You get first come, first serve. That's it. I totally disagree with the whole priority list. I think it should be first come, first serve, because there is technically, and I have no data to prove this up, so I'm saying this based on my personal beliefs. And I believe that there is technically more single individual homeless people than there are disabled and families. So I guess technically, with that said, yeah, you can kind of see why they would make it a priority to help the families and disabled people first, because they're like, well, that type of number is smaller, where majority of it is single individual adults. And my whole gripe, along with having open talks with many different providers, is that why isn't there anything that helps the homeless people that are working? Like, why is a lot of it based around that, they're a drug or an alcoholic, or they're not working, meaning, let's say they don't have a family, like they don't have kids or anything, and let's say they're not disabled, right, which means they can work. So then how does that person take a more priority over than a homeless person that is working? That is, you can equate working to the person trying. And I would think the person that's actually showing effort would be the person you would want to help more over, so the person who is capable of working but isn't, right? I don't know if I'm wrong in seeing it that way, but I would think, right? But no, it's the other way around. So I always ask the question, why isn't there anything for this? And I also propose the question of, okay, well, what about the homeless people that are like homeless because of alimony, child support, or owing money to the IRS? Those people need legal representation to get a financial foothold to get off the streets. Like, what about those people? There's nothing being offered to help those that can be essentially, you could argue, essentially can be helped quicker, which would therefore technically reduce the number of the homeless population by some margin. I couldn't give you data or numbers on how big that margin would be, but I would assume that it would be noticeable impact, because I've talked to other homeless people that are working right now, and the thing I've heard a lot of is that they work, but they stay homeless because of either child support, alimony, or owing money to the government. And I can understand all three reasons. If the any person that comes and tells me that that's one of the reasons, because I can understand that the courts ruled maybe too heavily handed. And what I mean by ruled too heavily handed is that they made their alimony payments too high, or they made the child support payments too high. Okay. Yeah. When the judge says, oh, guess what? You're going to pay $1,000 a month in child support to the mother of who's taking care of the kid. In my head, I'm like, oh, what? So every month so mommy can buy him a PS5 every month. That's $600 right there. Right? I just off the bat. And assuming you don't get it at scalpers prices. And what does that leave? What does that leave? An additional $400 left over. Okay, uniform and school supplies. Okay, maybe the initial upfront startup cost for uniforms and school supplies for the new school year. Yeah, you could spend anywhere between $100 and like maybe $300, right? Because you figure new backpack, well, you school, well, okay, school clothes or uniforms and school supplies, right? Yeah, and then thereafter, what? It's not $400 every month for school supplies. I mean, unless you're looking to buy the kid, a new pair of the in style, Nike shoe every month, then okay. But then what are you doing with the rest of the money? Right. So that's what I mean by heavy handed, I feel. And, these people needing the legal assistance to help them get the financial foothold. I'm not saying, oh, pardon their child support. I'm not saying, oh, pardon the alimony. I'm not saying, oh, pardon their what they owe Uncle Sam. What I am saying is get it reduced. I think everybody should be accountable for, the things they do in their life and, you know, pay their dues. But sometimes the courts can be very heavy handed, and there's plenty of news articles out there on it. And if you're homeless, how are they going to collect? You can't. So these people are systematically being forced to stay homeless because of some of these issues and possibly other issues. I don't know what everyone's problem is, obviously. Outside the typical norm, and what I consider the typical norm is drugs, alcohol, and mental health. Even I suffer with mental health. I think I don't want to say everyone. I think a lot of people suffer with mental health to a degree, but still function because you gotta live, right? You gotta survive. You gotta do what you gotta do to survive, even if it means working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs, 8 jobs, 12 jobs, or 12 jobs plus panhandling, or 12 jobs plus panhandling plus having an OnlyFans account. I a little tongue in cheek humor there. But you do what you gotta do to survive. Doesn't matter what it is, you just do it. Right. And, again, there's not enough of what I would consider the important priority help. The type of help that would have the most impact, I think. Because sometimes what I think the issue is regarding homelessness is that it's easy to draw a picture and say, oh, all these people are in these really bad conditions, when that isn't 100% the truth. And I guess at the same time, you can argue I'm like the 0.1% of the homeless population. Meaning, I do what I can to stay off the streets, but I'm in this cycle of constantly being homeless because I don't have the opportunity to save up money. Okay. Because I like keeping good hygiene. I like keeping my clothes clean, things like that. I like having, quote unquote, the home lifestyle. And, it's hard to maintain that at the prices I'm paying, basically. Right. But at the same time, if I can't save up 3 times the amount, or more, because unfortunately, yeah, you may say, well, geez, hey, house, if you can afford to stay in a motel, why can't you get an apartment? Well, number one, I have shoddy credit. So my credit score doesn't help me in that department. And number two, because of it, I have to pay extra, basically. I don't get to use my credit score and say, hey, let me get a place, right? No, I got to pay for it in cash and show I have the money. I got to do a lot of that. But in order to get the money, I got to be able to save. In order to be able to save, I just need 3 to 6 months from the county right now to say, hey, we're going to put you in this motel room. Let's work out your savings plan and how much you're going to put away per month. So this way you have a goal. And then we'll help you look for in a place within your budget. That's it. That's all I need. That's it. I just need them to suddenly turn around, grab from their list of, property owners that they work with that are like, oh yeah, they're guaranteed to have a place for you. More or less, right? That's all I need from them. A roof over my head. Okay. And again, if LAHSA, the Los Angeles Homeless Service Authority, wants to claim they're spending 40 grand a year, and it's only like 25 grand a year to house a chronically homeless person in a hotel room, so then why can I not get like 8 grand worth of assistance out of like that 40 grand that they're claiming to spend, or 8 grand? Okay, so they also say, oh, okay, it's 10 grand to house a person inside a shelter. Okay, again, why can I not get 8 grand out of that 10 grand or 40 grand just to give me enough time so this way I can bank away the money, so this way I can have the financial statements necessary to convince a landlord that, hey, I got 3 months of rent saved up. I have the first, last, and deposit, and I can move in immediately. In order for me to do that, I just need that little bit of assistance, and I would be out of the county's hair, and I would be out of the city's hair, and I would be fine after that. That's it. I don't understand. They don't have to pay for a recovery because I don't have a drug or an alcohol addiction. Oh, I'm sorry, I have an addiction to wanting to keep a roof over my head. That's about the only real addiction I have that's, killing my pocket right now. Because I'm tired of sleeping on the concrete. I'm tired of being out in the cold. I'm tired of waking up to every little sound that goes by me. People walking by, not knowing, if someone's going to try to shoot me while I'm asleep or stab me or, any of that sort. So yeah, keeping a roof over my head is a bit of an incentive because of that, because of the dangers of, sleeping out on the street, especially with, recently there was a woman that got stabbed, literally caught on video. She was just asleep with her shopping cart at her head. This, what looks like a dude, comes up, stabs her right in the head, and then casually walks away. Like if nothing happened. Before that, there was a guy that was driving around to different cities in different counties, walking up to homeless people as they're sleeping in like parks and on the sidewalk and behind buildings and pulling a bullet through their head. Okay, it's dangerous. And then before that, you have the occasional story where, a couple or a homeless person was just sleeping and this car comes along and jumps the curb, and that was it. So yeah, it's not safe out there. And then now you have this coronavirus going on, and and because I'm asthmatic and diabetic, I have to be extra cautious. I'm still waiting to get a vaccine, but I just have to be cautious, though. I have to be careful, so I can't be near people right now, and that's what's making this costing me an arm and a leg, because basically what I'm saying is that if COVID wasn't happening, right? If COVID wasn't happening right now, all this unemployment money that I'm collecting, I would be banking it away. I wouldn't be using it on a motel room. I use it occasionally to get something to eat. And that's it. and maybe occasionally get a room just to shower and, get one night of good rest. And that's it. But no, thanks to COVID, I have to be wary of people, because I have to take public transportation. I don't even own a car. I'm kind of like trying to find a way to like, oh, who can I stay with for a couple of months so this way I can buy a car, right? At least that. But no, I can't even do that. Can't even get a car. And it's the situation's rough, and it is what it is. You know. But I guess that's enough of my rant. But the point is, I can't figure out how the county and the city and Judge Carter and all these people in this lawsuit can show up to court and be like talking about the obvious that I've been ranting about long before this lawsuit. And then I like how that when a city council member makes a public statement that LAHSA isn't doing their job, oh, the media just runs with it. Oh, that's like, the golden gospel. But prior to that, I've been saying so for 2 years plus on social media. And no news reporter, nobody, no tabloid, no nothing wanted to listen to me. But again, because city council member says it, oh, it's the golden gospel. Oh, it must be true. And you know what, folks? That's what frustrates me the most. And that's what makes me do what I do. That's why I say, on social media, I say this, that, I advocate for the homeless while homeless myself, because how are you going to hear about these experiences from somebody who ain't homeless versus, somebody who is and is just trying to get by? That's all I do. I don't ask people for money on well, at least not on the internet anymore. Well, I take it back. Okay. Let me word this correctly. I'm not asking for a handout from the public. Like, in other words, I'm not starting a GoFundMe or any of that sort. It's like, no, I've done a Reddit AMA. I've been active on Reddit's. They have a subreddit for the homeless. I get a lot of likes there because I mention noteworthy news across the country in the United States, especially winning cases where homeless rights have been held up, and things like that, because it's important for other people to be in the know, and it's important that something gets done, because this is ridiculous, to be honest. Long before I was ever homeless, going as far back as when I was a teenager, my parents taught me to have compassion. So yeah, I for whatever reason, this one particular memory sticks in my head. I don't know why, but it does. And I was coming back from visiting my grandmother. I think I was like 15, 16 at the time. I was going through downtown, right? Saw this homeless dude with a blanket. At this time period, so this was like late 90s. So around this time period, McDonald's was selling cheeseburgers for like $1, right? And I used to get like 10 of them at a time. I was chunky. I was chunky as a young teenager, and I didn't finish them all. I mean, I finished, the ones I started eating. I think I had like 4 left in that bag. I think like 4 left. But anyway, I had bought 10 and ate like 6. And I saw this dude. All he had was just a blanket wrapped around him, and And I saw all these people in their business suits and nice briefcases and nice dress, work office shoes, whatever you want to call them, just shoes, I guess. Um, just walking past him, like no big deal. Saw, people with their Starbucks, Subway sandwiches, whatever. Just walk past him, not even glancing at him. They literally walked past him. And I felt bad for him. So luckily, I had the 4 cheeseburgers and I had a bottle of like a 20-ounce bottle of Coke, like an extra bottle because, buses and traveling. It was like early spring or not, no, late spring going into summer. It was hot. It was kind of hot out. It was, well, not hot, but it was like kind of warm out. So I ended up giving it to him. I was thinking to myself, like, oh man, I'm not gonna finish these cheeseburgers, so why let it, go stale and then have to re-zap them later, right? They were still hot, by the way. They were still like piping hot. Like, no, maybe not piping hot, but they were still hot. You could tell, like, by touching the bag, they were still hot. So I gave it to him. Say, excuse me. And he peeked out of his blanket. When he saw the McDonald's bag, oh man, he knew I was giving him the good stuff, or at least that's the expression. His eyes. What I could see of his eyes, he knew I was giving him the good stuff. And I gave it to him, and I gave him the 20-ounce bottle of Coke. What's that, man? Man, I think that was like his probably only good meal that day, or the best meal he's had in a good while. I didn't look back to watch him eat or anything. I just, gave it to him and walked on, my merry way. I kept going, because, why waste any more time? Then it's like, I could tell, but by his eyes, he was grateful. And, I remember as I was walking away, I could hear him digging into the bag and, unwrapping one of the cheeseburgers and just like what sounded like to me, essentially scarfing it down. And I'll never forget that day. And what irked me was, again, it was all these people that clearly had money, could have stopped and gave them at least their change, a buck, whatever, right? And here I am, out of my own allowance. Like, man, this is messed up. Like, a teenager has more compassion than, and there's people that are dressed that look like they work office jobs. And in my head, I still wonder to this day whatever happened to him because, I had passed through that part of downtown a lot. I never saw him again. Um, I hope it gave him that. What I hope it did for him was that I hope it gave him the energy he needed after having his belly full, up to the drink, a little bit of caffeine to perk him up. I hope it gave him the energy to get where he needed to go. Because, I mean, how are you going to walk around when you're hungry? Right? How are you going to, if you're hungry, that means you're essentially just low on energy. I mean, how are you going to be able to get up and move around? Get to where you have to get going to, do what you need to do. Even if all you have is just a blanket. Dirty one at that. I kind of wish I had, money to get him into a motel room or something for one night, but I didn't. Obviously, I was just a teenager. I couldn't do anything for him beyond then just giving him the food and the drink. I've had plenty of other similar situations of doing things like that, but that one just stuck with me, and I don't know why. I think it had a lot to do with his gratefulness that he had, obviously. And I guess you could say because of that experience, it's what got me into advocating for the homeless. But you can't. It's kind of hard. I don't know. It's kind of weird because when you're not homeless but you're advocating for a change, it's like a lot of people see it as, well, you know, what do you what do you expect a kid to know, basically, who's never been homeless, who's you know and still lives with mommy and daddy, and things like that. That was kind of like the mindset at the time. What do you expect a kid to know, right? But then on the flip side of the coin, here I am homeless, advocating, and it feels like sometimes like nobody's listening. You know, because again, the prime example is that I've been raving and ranting that LAHSA doesn't work. Oh, but because a city council member says that LAHSA isn't working, or I should say isn't doing their job. Oh, well, then people want to listen. But that's all I have to say, and that's all for the Judge Carter update. So I'll end up doing another video when there's another major update. Thank you for listening, and take care.